Um, Today I'm gonna be walking you through my three challenging concepts. Move this through my three challenging concepts that I encountered while I was building my Rocket Elevators backend and my APIs. Um, so this is a Node.js REST API that handles elevator pricing, agent information, and customer contact forms. While the project seems to be straightforward on the surface, there were a few areas that I think I could have done a little better in, that I probably could have had a little bit more help on. But regardless, here it is. There you go. So the first concept is a middleware. It's the ordering and authentication removal. So for this project, no API keys were needed, and everything was on a local server. So I think removing the middleware was a little difficult because my AI put it in there automatically. So I kept getting 400 errors, and I wasn't able to actually do anything. So middleware is a code that runs on every incoming request, like a security guard checking requests before they reach your routes. Your defining middleware is using app.use, and here's the key. Let me see. So the defining middleware uses app.use, and the key, so Express runs the middleware in the exact order that you define it. So when this project started, it had a global API key authentication middleware, and this middleware was supposed to protect the API by checking for an X API key header on every request. The code would look a little wonky. So this worked a little too well because it blocked almost every single request, including endpoints that should have been public, and one endpoint, which was my email list, that was supposed to return agent contact information without authentication. So the initial solution was to add an allow list inside the middleware, and we'll say, hey, if the request path is slash email dash list or slash hello, you can skip the authentication check and continue. And this worked, but it created a maintenance problem that made the app that made the actual code differentiate to surface. So when you skip the authentication check and continue, every time we wanted to add a new public endpoint, we'd have to go back and update the allow list, and it got error prone and it's got a little messy. So what I learned was that, apologies. So what I learned was that when most endpoints are public and you only need to protect a few, that removing the global middleware entirely is cleaner than maintaining a complex allow list. So instead of adding the weird code that uses the app.use API key middleware, or you can just maintain it publicly and it would be a lot easier because all endpoints become public by default. So it was the correct design decision for this API, with the challenge with recognizing that simplicity wins and removing code is often better than adding complexities to manage that bad code. My second concept was currency formatting with the INTL. Oh, so the CalcDAS residential endpoint. So my CalcDAS residential endpoint. Let me find it. It calculates how many elevators a building needs and what it costs. So you say you have two elevators at premium tier, which are $12,000 each. It would calculate it 2 times 12,000, be 24,000. Let's see, the 15% installation fee, which would be 3,600, which would come out to $27,600. Now the problem is that if you return total underscore cost 27,000 as a plain number, it looks unprofessional and messy, as a customer would expect to see the dollar sign with the decimals and current and proper currency formatting. So the challenge was, first, where should we format the number in the route handler? And in the calculation. Second, do we do it consistently, especially if we have multiple well, currencies or locales? And the answer is you have to format it at the calculation layer. Here's why. The calculation logic lives in a file called calcul.js, which is in my data. That's where we calculate the average required, calculate the elevators required and the cost. If we format the currency right there at the source, then the formatting is often consistent and always consistent at every route that uses the calculation, and it gets formatted results. We don't have to worry about formatting in multiple places if we've ever had to reuse this calculation because it's already formatted. So we use intl.number format. So use intl.number format. All right, which is a JavaScript API that is built specifically for a situation like this. It handles regional differences automatically, and we store the locale and currency settings in a central configuration file called data list agents.js. Here, here, and here, here. So the key lesson was that if you format data at the source and not at the destination, then it'll keep an entire configuration centralized. And if we use built-in APIs like intl.number format instead of trying to build formatting logic yourself, which is difficult. My third and final concept was the front end back end field naming integration. And I feel like this might seem simple, but it's surprisingly difficult. In the HTML form, the JavaScript handler and the backend API must all agree on exact field names. So any mismatch would actually break everything. And this happened to me a few times. It's only with the first few. So the error, slash hello, and slash status. So the JavaScript will extract this and send it to the backend. So it'll come out as name full name instead of name full underscore name, which is what I had. So the API, it expected it to be name underscore full name, but I just had it as name full name, no underscore. So when the backend checked for name full name, first name, it couldn't find them, so it rejected the request with a 400 error. It took me about 20 minutes of straight asking my AI to help me debug it until I finally came to the conclusion that I forgot to add the underscore, and I really just wasted 20 minutes because my get element with ID, he checked the backend and the validation was incorrect. So there was a secondary challenge as well. If a user entered only one word in the first name field and left the last name field empty, the backend would reject it. The solution was to add HTML required attributes to both fields. So if the browser prevents submission and if either is empty, front-end or backend integration is a contract. Field names must match exactly. And use consistent naming conventions, and like snake underscore case for JSON is pretty standard. And you always test it with curl first to identify the backend API works well before testing for the full UI integration. So that was it. These three concepts are middleware design, currency formatting, and front and backend coordination highlight the importance of thinking about architecture, consistency, and integration in backend development. They also make you want to make sure everything is correct and no formatting is incorrect, and you're paying attention to capitalization and punctuation. The importance of thinking about by understanding where to apply logic and how to keep different layers coordinated, you can build APIs that are maintainable, professional, and reliable. Thank you for watching.